Well, after 15 long episodes, the much-awaited merge is finally here. Begun. This merge war has. I always love it when Jericho talks about all his, the wars and the epic battles and how everybody's a knight going into war and we're the royal guards, and it's like you're watching Lord of the Rings every time he talks. Love him. I love it. Keep it up, Jericho. But this episode began with the Four Killers, as they now call themselves, returning from Tribal after having voted out Odette, because they knew that just go with the easy vote Odette would not be able to handle the wars that are about to come, and by the end of this episode, oh boy, did they make the right decision there. There's no way Odette could have handled some of the scrambling that's about to happen. And the fact that they call themselves Four Killers, which is a name I totally love, kind of goes to show what we talked about in these reviews a couple episodes ago, that often when you go into a merge, the underdog tribe that has less people, even though they're the numeric minority, the amount of skills and experience that they have, having gone to Tribal so many times, they've got like Wolverine blade claw hands in knowing how to scheme and knowing how to scramble. They've just had way more experience. So they usually end up chopping apart the larger opponent, the larger tribe. And the person who goes on to win the game usually comes from that smaller group. If history is any guide, one of these people will win. I'm still hoping Henry's going to get there though. But at least for now, the Four Killers seem to be united out of mutual interest of survival. Over on Summertown though, Jared says the famous last words of anyone in Survivor, which is, within Summertown, I'm feeling great. I've got a really strong alliance. Bad news, Jared. Whenever anyone says in Survivor, I'm feeling really comfortable, they're usually about to get voted out. Because they drop their guard. They can't see what's happening around them because they just feel like they're totally comfortable. They don't need to pay attention. Or it's because they feel comfortable because other people want them to feel comfortable because they're about to blindside them. Either way, it's usually not a good sign when someone starts talking like that. But Jared names how the alliance breakdown amongst Samatau is happening according to him, which is himself, Ziggy, Pete, Annalise, Tessa, and on the bottom being Michelle, Lockie, and Henry. Now, he names Michelle as being on the bottom, even though they're actively trying to string her along. They actively want her to think that she's with them. Now, you would think that they obviously must know that a merge is coming soon as well, and they'd obviously know that the remainder of a saga is going to try to shave off the bottom as many votes as they can to try to get the majority again. So, logically then, Jared and the others would be doing everything they could to try to keep Michelle, Lockie, and Henry happy and making them feel like they're included, otherwise they're just going to jump ship as soon as a saga gets here. This, however, they don't seem to be all that interested in doing. Or maybe they just feel like they've got them in their back pocket or something, but ultimately, as we see in the episode, this ends up to be their undoing. So when the merge happens at the reward challenge, and we have our first individual reward, Tessa wins the reward. I put it in air quotes because it really didn't turn out to be a reward. Even though she actually won, Jono drops that bomb on her of like, well, you can take that luxurious spa and all that wonderful stuff, or you can say no to that and everyone else can get a letter from home. I mean, of course she's going to have to pick that option. She doesn't have a choice. Once you give her that choice in front of everyone, she has to say yes, everyone should get a letter. Otherwise she'll just get voted out. I mean, really, it kind of sucks for her. I mean, she did legitimately win, but then they put her in a situation like that. She may as well not have won. I mean, what'd she bother going through all that for, of actually winning the challenge? Really, they should have pretended like they were taking her off to the spa thing, and then when she's at the spa, it said, now you have a choice. You can either just go ahead and have this spa, or you can refuse it and everyone can get a letter back in the tribe. See, that way she can have that guilty pleasure of having the spa without having to worry about any negative social consequences, and it would then mean a lot more if she actually did give up the spa then for everyone else. But perhaps it was on purpose, because for the producers to have everyone reading their letters together right after the merge was a good way of everyone getting to sort of bond and share their stories with each other. So it worked out being really good. Maybe they did do that on purpose. Sucks for Tess, but it's a great move for the show. And those letters were like really emotional, watching the effect it had on everyone. Normally those letters from home stuff is kind of boring, but this one was really good. So much crying, so much man tears. Really good. But once all that's over, the assessment begins of the situation. Tessa refers to this beach because they're using the Asaga beach for the new merged tribe now, which is Asatoa, a combination of the two words that they've used for the new tribe. And Tessa refers to the beach as Piranha Beach, because every single person here is extremely dangerous. Just like the Four Killers call themselves Four Killers, she recognizes that everyone here is a top-notch player, except of course for Tara, but that's a whole nother thing. But then we hear her utter the words which should never be spoken on Survivor. I feel comfortable in my alliance. Ugh! Don't feel comfortable. Stop feeling comfortable. You really shouldn't. This is just right after the merge. There's so much that can go wrong. You need to have heightened awareness right now. This is Piranha Beach, as you yourself said. She does acknowledge, though, the bond between Tara and Lockie, that they're still very close and that she could potentially, because she's one of the 4 killers, apparently. Should really be called the 3 killers and Tara. But she's got a very close bond with Lockie, and she points out that Lockie's someone who needs his ego watered, and Tara's always watering his ego. Even Tara herself has said in previous episodes, I follow him around like a little puppy dog, and she's happy to do that, and good for her. So Tessa is at least aware of that danger, but what about the connections between Sarah and Annalise, between Luke and Michelle, between Jericho and Henry? I mean, every single person in that Saga 4 has connections to someone else, mostly along the bottom that they're going to try to carve off. Like, that's really, really dangerous. I don't know why they feel so comfortable. They really should not. But again, this is the side that has not been to Tribal Council as much, so he's not as experienced as the 4 killers, or the 3 killers plus Tara. But Jared lays out his plan to take out Henry. And after Ziggy wins immunity, they don't feel comfortable voting for Henry because they do suspect he has the idol, which of course he does. So they instead decide to go for Luke. And it seems that Lockie initially was undecided about which direction he wanted to go, with his old Sentimental alliance or with the Saga. He was kind of in the middle. He even tried to convince Henry to just vote for Luke with everyone else. But of course Henry doesn't want to do that because he knows he'll be on the bottom in Sentimental. He'd rather have a fighting chance with the Saga, which is the right move Lockie should make, and he ultimately does make that. But he was pretty much undecided right up until the vote itself. And when he cast his vote, he said, why did you have to go after Henry? So he's got a real bromance with Henry. Just the hint that they were thinking of taking him out, even though they switched to Luke, was enough for him to turn on Jared. But the other half of the vote that allowed the 4 killers to get control of the situation was Michelle. She was in a similar situation as Lockie. She wanted to stick with Sentimental just because they had the numbers. There were more of them than there were in a Saga, but they were doing a terrible job of making her feel like she was actually part of their tribe. You gotta pay attention to people on the bottom of your tribe. You can't let them know they're on the bottom. Otherwise they've got no incentives to stay with you. If person A goes up to person B and asks who is on the bottom, you say person C. Doesn't matter who it actually is. And then the shot heard round the world came when Michelle asked Tess, how come no one's including me in any of this strategy? And Tessa says, oh my god, she says, it's probably just because you're last in. That's why we don't include you. Wow, Tessa. It's like there's actually a saying, last in, first out. They say that with jobs and stuff. And you literally told her, you're last in. You may as well just said, you'll be the first out. I mean, it was so obvious to her what she had to do in that moment in order to survive. It's crazy. It's crazy, Tess. I don't know, just Jared and Tessa, they were just so confident in they had the numbers and wow. But they realized pretty quick, once they're at the tribal, just with all the crosstalk and everything going on, that things were not as clear cut as they thought. And all these little side conversations that were happening, people forming bonds, making connections, and Sentimental just seemed to have no way to defend against all that scheming. But Jared at least did try to win over Jericho and try to get him to vote for Luke. I guess if only he knew how close he and Luke actually are, he must have known that probably wasn't going to work. But I did like that he asked Jericho to underline his vote so that he'd know for sure who he actually voted. And then when he voted out Jared, he made sure to underline it, just so Jared would know that vote came from him. I really love evil Jericho. I really do. He's cool. He's cool. He's got so much salt. Good on you, Jericho. You're awesome, mate. So the result was Jared got taken out. The numbers went over to the Saga 4 Killers Alliance and Jared went home. And in a way, I'm kind of sad to see that because Jared was playing a game that he said expressly is he was going to lay low until the merge, and then after the merge he's going to rise up and start making power moves. And that strategy makes sense. It absolutely does make sense. I mean, if you make too many power moves too soon, you end up like AK, where you get such a bad reputation, you don't make it all the way to the end. So there's a lot of sense to doing that, but by doing not that much in the game up until the merge means you don't have as much experience either. So it's difficult to do. It's a catch-22 situation. It's kind of like when you're a teenager and you're trying to get your first job. You can't get a job because you don't have any experience, and you can't get any experience because you don't have a job. It's kind of like that in Survivor. You need experience to make big moves, but you can't make big moves without experience. So it's difficult to do, and this was his first like really big move, and it didn't work. work. Sorry, Jared. I'd like to see you in a future season of Survivor, though, if they do bring people back, because I'd be interested to see what you could bring to the table on a second round. But ultimately, I'd say the sort of strategic breakdown of this episode, like the lesson we can learn from this, because it's such a big episode, so many people, the merge going on, so many different elements at play. I think we could say the moral of the episode, like the moral of the story, is pay attention to the people on the bottom. Don't just leave them hanging. They're basically your sacrificial lambs, and you don't beat up and brutalize and neglect sacrificial lambs. Sacrificial lambs are treated with tender care and great love and affection right up until the point where their throat is cut. So that's how you should treat the people on the bottom. Give them all the attention in the world, make them feel wonderful, make them feel great, right up until they're going to be chopped off. Se02 did not do that with their people on the bottom, and I think especially with Lockie, and I genuinely do think that given Lockie's hesitance about jumping over to a saga, and how Michelle also needed that prodding of like, well, you're last in, that's why we don't include you, for them to jump, they could have easily kept the two of them if they had just given them more attention, and then the 4 killers would have been killed, along with Henry. So thanks for watching, guys. Put your thoughts down in the comments section below, and until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.